Hey, thanks everybody for joining us this morning for our NUIT Tech Talk on email and calendar and quick tips, our first Tech Talk for the spring quarter. I'm Christina Bello with the NUIT Communications team and have with me today's presenter, Kevin Offler. Before we begin the presentation today, if you have any trouble hearing me or Kevin, please make sure your volume is adjusted, either headphones or speakers, whichever you're using. Also, make sure that you're using a wired internet connection if that's available, and that you close any applications running in the background that are connected to the internet, including email, any other web browsers you might have open. We're going to be doing some demo today, so that'll just give you the best connection during the presentation. If you have a question at any time, you can type it into the Q&A box down here, and we'll answer those throughout the presentation. After the presentation, we'll also give you an opportunity to download the PowerPoint that Kevin's going to be going through. But again, we're going to be doing a lot of demo, kind of showing you some of the things we're talking about during the presentation. But before we get started, we have one quick poll question we just would like your input on. So our question is, what client are you using for email and calendaring? And there's 4 options, 5 options actually. Outlook 2013, 2010, OA, webmail, or Outlook for Mac. Or if you're not sure, you can go other, or and if you're not sure which Outlook version you're on, you can select either one of those, and we'll give everyone a moment to answer that. And if you are using something other than what's listed, if you can just type it into the Q&A box, just so we know we're not leaving anybody out here, that would be helpful as well. It's mostly Outlook 2013 users and a couple Mac. Great. I'll give you all one more moment, and then I will hand it over to Kevin. Okay, great. All right, thank you, everyone. And with that, Kevin, take it away.
Okay. It's Kevin Offler. I'm from NUIT Collaboration Services. Flip here and just go through the agenda real quick. It's kind of a high-level agenda. Just going to go through Outlook 2013 a little bit. I'm going to go over some calendar delegation, meetings and invitations. There's been some questions about those for people as far as how to compose meetings and invitations and the options that you have, and then some email recommendations as well. There's not really a ton of new features in Outlook 2013 and Exchange 2013, but there's a few little ones that are geared towards the Outlook 2013 client that I realize there's a couple Mac people on, and I didn't bring a Mac with me today, but there's not really a whole lot of new for you guys, but there are some best practices as far as managing and using not only your calendar, but accessing other people's delegated calendars that would apply to those Mac users as well. And then we'll spend a good amount of time for Q&A at the end, because we usually get a lot of good questions during these sessions. So that we'll get started. Outlook 2013. I realize there's some people that are still on 2010 here, and we did just finally complete the migration of 26,000 mailboxes here at the university for faculty and staff, and organizational mailboxes from Exchange 2010, which we migrated to a few years ago. We successfully got everyone migrated over to Exchange 2013, and we completed that in only a few months, but we are now completely transitioned over. So if you haven't actually logged into OA in a while, you might be pleasantly surprised if you go log on there, and you'll see that there is a new, simpler OA web interface. That's, all of the feedback that we've heard has been positive about the updated OA interface. It's not as busy as the old one was, and doesn't take as long to load and everything. So with that, going to switch to demo mode here. Share on my screen.
And I'll just mention real quick, there's an option towards the top here if you want to make this full screen, if you want to see the what Kevin's walking through in a little bit more detail, there's an option just up at the top of the screen sharing portions for you.
And actually, probably one of the other poll questions we should have asked as well is how many people are actually using Link. I'm going to talk about that for a second, but we don't need to know. If you're not using Link, it's the instant messaging here at the university, and it ties in really well whether you're on a Mac or a Windows machine to kind of integrate into your email experience. And sometimes it's quicker to send somebody a quick instant message than it is to reply with a full email. But Outlook 2013 is a lot more stable than 2010 was, as well as there's a couple little new things here, like the calendar peek feature. While I'm actually in my mail, instead of opening another window, I can actually just hover over in the lower left-hand corner, and I'll get a little pop-up that actually has the calendar as well as my schedule for the next few days, depending on how many things I have over those few days. You know, I'll see multiple days, or if I have a full day of meetings, it would only show a full day. So let's see. One of the other big things I wanted to kind of show everybody too real quick with Outlook 2013 is in my account settings. A lot of people have, when we migrated everyone to Exchange 2013, we gave all faculty and staff an updated mailbox quota. Everybody, if you didn't notice, has been upgraded to 16 gig mail file. With that, and like newer laptops that have smaller hard drives, you may not always have enough space for your ginormous mail file on your mobile device or on your, on your laptop if you are using a laptop or a desktop with a smaller hard drive. If you do go into account settings, though, everybody at the university, we recommend that you run in cache mode just because there are so many users. But if I go in here, one of the great things about Outlook 2013 is you can actually choose how much mail to keep on your client. My mail file personally is like 8 gig probably, just because I kind of hoard all my email and keep everything.
I don't think you're the only one.
For reference, and I know I'm not the only one, but I only keep 3 months of my mail offline on my machine, and what that does is it keeps the footprint of the mail that's locally cached on my machine down to a minimum. So I only have a couple hundred megabytes of email stored on my machine, but the rest of it's all stored up, in our Northwestern data centers and readily accessible for me to either search across or access and download if need be to my local machine if I need to work on it.
So, for instance, if you wanted to get something that was a year or so old, it's not like you have to go through some other process to get it off your email.
You would just see, and again, if you just notice that I'm only caching 3 months here. Let's just go search. This is one of our old coworkers who used to work here and has been gone for a couple of years. You'll notice if I do a search for his name, nothing comes up right away, but it actually goes back to 2012 and finds conversations as well as emails with him. So, and I can actually show more results from being on the server, but.
Got it. So this is just a way to basically save space on your hard drive and still have all your stuff accessible.
Correct.
Got it.
As well as day-to-day operations, your mail file doesn't have to sync 60,000 things and check, 60,000 things and 10 years of email every day to synchronize. It has to check the last 5,000 things that you've got over the last couple months.
Got it.
To synchronize and keep local.
Okay. So it could potentially get your computer a little bit easier.
It's going to help with performance on your Outlook client as well as keep down how much hard drive space things are using.
Great.
So, I need to find someone. Let's find a message from Miss Bello here. Oh, I don't have any recent ones. If I find more on the server, I have some conversations with her because we usually actually just IM a lot. But last week I actually sent her.
And you can slow down one thing because it's
Sorry.
screen sharing is just taking a second to catch up.
Last week I actually sent her the presentation for this, Tech Talk today. But you'll see, I need to real quick. I think are you in Do Not Disturb?
Oh yeah,
Christina?
yeah. Let me turn that off.
All right. You'll notice this is an email I sent Christina last week, but what I'd like to do is just follow up with her regarding this.
Actually, can you just
Hold it.
minimize this for one thing? For some reason, the screen's blinking up.
Oh.
I can see your cursor moving around, but
Does that show up?
no.
That little hover box?
Yeah, just shrink your screen down. Let me see if it's just something you could do with. Sorry, technical issues. One moment.
I move it over, does it show?
Let's hold on. Okay, and we're back. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so Kevin, sorry I interrupted you.
Okay.
But we should be good to go now.
All right, now let's see does it show the little hover box?
Yes.
All right, if you see if I hover over Christina's name, we had a conversation previously via email. What I'd like to do is actually instant message her and say hello on our Tech Talk here. And what that you'll notice actually is up on the subject line of the instant message, it actually has the same subject as the email that I sent to her. But the little feature that I wanted to mention though is I don't have to open up my instant messaging client to respond in another manner to her. I can do it right from my Outlook client because of that tight integration.
And I'll mention, I actually find this really handy as a recipient, because if I see an IM come up and you're IMing me about a specific email, having the subject line there, so I kind of know what the context is before kind of the conversation starts, is really helpful as well.
So once I close this though, I actually have this message was a sent message. Let me just go over there, find it last week. So what it actually does also that's not kind of showing up here is it groups those conversations together.
As part of the email?
Part of the email thread, you can also group in like related items together, which leads us into talking about conversation view, which was available in 2010, but I don't know how many people are or are not using the conversation view. But in the case of, say, this email about Chrome, the new version of Chrome that came out last week, you can actually see it's grouped all of the replies and responses together. This is an email from yesterday, and what's good is if I want to read the whole history of this email, I was out yesterday, I could just go through and expand the conversation and read back through the history of the conversation without having to search for all the previous messages in my inbox. Because like other people, I get, lots of email on a daily basis, as you can imagine. So.
And someone had a great question about the link and demo you showed a second ago. So they asked, if email is connected to the email client on a mobile device, can Instant Messenger also be on mobile? And is that connected as well?
Yes.
Okay.
You can't, well, not, it depends on the mobile device at this point.
Okay.
The Apple Mail and Android Mail clients that you use are, while it's connected to your Exchange account, it's not completely integrated with the mobile link client.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's any plans for Apple, because they're the ones that program that, for instance, on an iOS device, are going to do any integration. At some point, it's out right now, but we haven't kind of certified it for use here. There is from Microsoft, an Outlook app for iOS and Android that's out, and at some point there may be some integration between the mobile link client and the mobile Outlook that could provide you with more.
Got it. So really the only part, you absolutely can use Link on mobile devices.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Email on mobile devices. It's just sometimes the two work together. It's the only part that basically is in question is whether the IM will have that subject line or connected to the email like you just showed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, mind you, if Christina's on her mobile and I instant message her from my desktop with that subject or that history, then
it'll be connected.
It'll be connected on mine, and when it saves the kind of tracking history on the servers, when Christina gets back to her email, to her Outlook client or her, computer, or her computer, she'll see that they're linked.
Connected. Okay. So it's a somewhat complicated answer to a relatively simple question.
Yes.
The answer is kind of, but you can absolutely use individually email and IM on your mobile devices. So hopefully that answered that question.
All right. There's some improved mail tips. There's got to be somebody. Oh, there's nobody.
And so what you're showing now is the address book within Outlook, right?
Correct. I was just looking up the name of our group, which I can go over that later. I actually just want to look up the all staff group here, because I'm sure somebody must be out of office. So this is actually mail tips. But another thing it's showing me is there's 311 people in the NUIT all staff group, and I don't actually technically have permission to send to this group because it's a restricted group, or only certain people within NUIT have permission to send to it, not even the email administrator. So that was the improved mail tips is what the point of showing this to you was that this little area up here when you're composing an email is the mail tips, but let's see if I expand the group, if it will actually show. You can see I don't have other permissions to send to a lot of these other groups. But the point was, it would also show you up here if somebody was out of the office.
And what you're showing also shows that if you have a listserv or something like that, or a list set up like this in Outlook, you can expand to see who's on that list. Correct. You can
expand to see who's in the group and see their status as well. The great thing about these groups is that they kind of span across Exchange and Link instant messaging, and you can use them for permissions in SharePoint.
Got it.
So, we finally got one. Vicki Geddes is actually out of the office today, and she will respond to her email after she returns. So, the point of that being, I may not want to send her an email because she's out of the office. So.
No, that I actually like when that pops up. Sometimes it saves you 30 seconds of sending the email if you need something immediately. Just make a note to yourself.
Yep.
Contact them when they get back.
Search was a big one. I know we talked about cached settings and search earlier, but the The search is actually improved a little bit in the new version of Outlook, as well as Exchange 2013 on the back end. And just to get into a little bit more detail about that, if you're on a Windows machine or on a Mac, the part of your mail that solely utilizes that local machine search engine. For a Windows machine, it's actually Windows Search that does the locally cached part. And then as you saw earlier, if for some reason it needs to search the server, then it's actually connecting up and using the search index of your mail file on the Exchange system. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then when you're logged into webmail, it's fully utilizing the Exchange server and search and not Suncool.
Got it.
So you'll also notice here there's a new little message preview. It's a little enhanced, and it has some, you can reply right from the message preview, or as another option to what I showed earlier is I can just message Roger, right from my client. So, which I'm not going to do because Roger's probably busy. Let's try and send Christina attachment.
Someone had a question. What are the implications of using the search function on a local versus the one on the Exchange server?
In short, if the more that's local and locally indexed, the quicker, depending on your machine speed, the quicker a search result is going to be returned, because it's not traversing the network. And especially if you're on, like at Starbucks on a poor wireless connection, and you're trying to search across wireless on the Connect campus, and then to the Exchange, your results are going to be returned, a little slower. It'll still function, but it'll just be a little slower.
Got it.
And that 3 months that I have stored on mine isn't what we're recommending. That's just what I choose because I want to keep free space on my machine. You can do 6 months if you're regularly looking back through 6 months worth of email, or 6 months, or just store a year if you want. The point is not to store the whole entire history of your email at Northwestern over 5, 10, 15, there's some people, 40 years they've been here, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to store all that on your machine. Leave it up on the server so it's safe and backed up, and just work locally with what you need.
And they had a great follow-up question. How do they control if the search is carried out on the machine versus the server? How can you choose or make that distinction?
It's based on, at least the Windows version, it's based on what's kept on the machine.
Okay. So, for instance, if you have your email set up to just have the past 3 months on there, and you do a search, it'll just search the local machine. If it's past that 3 months,
then you'll see the option to see more things on the server.
Okay. So that see more option is basically.
That see more option is like, it actually says, you can see here, it says find more on the server.
Got it.
It's doing the local search right now. But if I scroll all the way down to the bottom here, Scott's probably a bad example because I communicate with my boss daily. But this will show me more results down to a point where we reach that 3 months, and then it would say find more on server, and then that's when the search will reach out and
got it.
to the server.
So it's not necessarily a setting people have to set. It's
No.
just an option once you get past kind of what you have cached.
Correct.
Got it.
All right. Other cool thing, I'm going to say PowerPoint presentation. And I'm going to say attached. Okay. It's the. And I spelled it wrong, so let me fix that real quick. But
About that again, folks. This is not a problem I've encountered before with this screen sharing. So thanks for sticking with us and being patient.
and because of that, we may try and we'll kind of hang around, go over to answer any questions if we run out of time.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to try and be less long-winded. You'll notice here I was going to send Christina an email and say PowerPoint presentation and say attaches the presentation, but I didn't attach anything. And what it actually did was say, oh, hey, you forgot to attach a file.
That's very helpful.
Right, which a lot of times you accidentally send somebody an email like, hey, here's the pictures or here's whatever, and then you forget to attach it, and back and forth. It's just one of those other little...
No one likes sending that second email that says, I forgot the attachment.
No. Or receiving the second email, the reply that says, I forgot the attachment.
Yeah. So
moving on real quick, there's a cool additional calendar feature that you can turn on and off in Exchange 2013, where it actually has a link and pulls weather information. So I can actually see as I'm scheduling a lunch or something tomorrow, for instance, what's the weather going to be like, and I can actually change that to home or work, or I can, if I'm going on a trip somewhere, I can actually add in, where I'm going for a conference or something, and then as a conference is coming up, I can actually see the weather out a few days and see how I should pack. Or
cool. That's handy. Or if you're going on vacation, I guess too.
Yes, if you're going on vacation, you keep track of your personal calendar, in Exchange. Go for it. As well, contacts. I'm just going to really go over this real quick. I can actually, let's find somebody. This person I can delete. Let's try and update Sherry. I have her saved to my contacts. One of the options that I actually have, and she's probably up to date, I can actually, if I have multiple contacts for whatever reason, like sync from my phone or some other reason I might have Sherry in here, I can actually go in here and link up. I do have her in here multiple times. So what I can do is actually link those contacts together so they share information. And so now they're linked, so I can make sure that her updated information is in each version of that contact that I have for her. Also, something, sorry, I just had on my list, is let's reply to Roger again. I'm going to reply to Roger and say, hey. But something else important just came in. I need to switch to that. If you'll notice down here, it actually has a little note saying, oh, you already started drafting a reply to Roger. So right in line, I can actually see that I have a draft related to this message, and then I can actually get back to the draft right from my inbox. I don't have to switch back to the drafts folder.
Yeah, that's a really nice feature as well. If you started replying to something, got distracted, you don't have to remember, and then, as I often do, end up with a folder of draft emails that's like 20 or 30 long because I forget who I started replying to already.
Yep. All right, now we're going to get into some calendar delegation. There's a few different things going on here, so bear with me, and I'll try and get through it as best I can. You can actually give people calendar permissions or permission to your calendar. You can actually see I have a list of people who have certain permissions to my calendar here. Over and above that permission, though, I can actually assign delegates to my mail account. Included in my mail account is obviously my calendar. So if I have an assistant, or I am an assistant for someone that I would be a delegate for in Outlook 2013, there's also a way to do this from the Outlook on a Mac, but we have instructions out there for that right now, so I'm just going to kind of go through it here. delegate access, you'll see I don't have any actual delegates assigned to my mail file, but what I can do is I'm going to assign Christina as a delegate. And
Go ahead.
I'm going to give her access to my calendar, my tasks, and my contacts, but not my email. And I don't want her to see my private items, though. And so I'm going to assign her now as a delegate, and I'm going to choose down here. How do I want people's calendar and meeting invites routed? Do I want them routed to just Christina, myself and Christina, or other delegates, or only to Christina, but also send me a copy of the requests and responses? That's the recommended setting.
So who is this meant for? How do people generally use this feature?
So if you're an executive, you would delegate, to your executive assistant, you would delegate them a portion or all of your mail file. Or if you have a departmental account or an organizational mailbox, you may want to go in and actually assign yourself as a delegate of that mailbox. It's just enhanced kind of additional permissions over and above simply giving out permission to some calendar.
Got it.
You're managing other portions of the person's mail file. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually leave Christine in here, and I'm going to apply the change real quick, and then I'm going to go back, and I'm sure no one kept track in my calendar. You'll notice.
Sorry about, for those of you who had momentary frozen screen, it should be resolved now.
Okay. Now, what you'll notice here is Christina is now added, based on me adding her as a delegate, she's now added with editor permissions to my calendar folder. I'm going to go back and remove her now, because she doesn't need to get bombarded with all of my meeting requests and whatnot.
Okay, and then to do that, you just go through
the File tab in Outlook. There are some instructions out there on how to do that from a Mac client, and it's very similar on Outlook 2010. We would recommend, it's free for your, all faculty and staff to upgrade to the latest version of Outlook. So unless there's some performance, worry.
And for those couple people that are on here that are on 2010, how can they upgrade? Because I know a lot of what you're showing is for 2013. So
it's there's links out on the NUIT website on where to actually download it, but depending on your school or department, you may need your local desktop support to be able to log in and upgrade for you. Everybody's different, whether they have the rights to do that or not.
So if you are on 2010, probably fastest route, check with your local IT. They can either tell you if you can do it yourself, or they can take care of it for you.
Correct.
Got it.
All right. So in the delegates, though, we actually recommend that you have as few delegates as possible. And if you do have more than one, you need to put a business process around, who the main delegate is that's handling things day to day, and who's like the backup delegate. That's more of a business process thing, because you can see where that could get tricky is if I have 5 people as a delegate for my mailbox and they get my meeting request. What if Christina accepts it, but John, my other delegate, declines it? Then things start getting confusing, and people think there's something wrong with the system when it's actually just multiple people taking different actions on the same thing. So we do recommend that a manager and their delegates should all have the same version of Outlook, including up to the same patch level, because there are things that are fixed in each update, like just this last week, actually, a big update came out for Microsoft Office. So we recommend that you and or your desktop support make sure that everybody's on the same level of spirit, especially if you're experiencing some weird like quirks or something.
Yeah.
Make sure you're completely up to date.
Got it.
Try and only interact with meeting requests from one client.
Actually, Kevin, do you want to switch back to the I can switch back to the PowerPoint really quick.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. I got it. Okay.
So we actually recommend that you primarily accept meeting requests from your full mail client. There are some documented issues with different versions of both iOS and Android because those companies basically write those programs that interact with your Exchange mail file. They don't always get things right. So there was actually a documented issue at one point where if I accepted a meeting from Christina on my iPhone, then I would somehow take over that meeting and become the owner of it. Right? And that was an issue with the way that the iOS calendar application was programmed. So we actually recommend that you use those, tablets and phones as viewing devices for viewing your schedule. Now, mind you, we're talking about meetings here, not appointments. Nobody's invited to it, then it's the deal if you create an appointment on your mobile device and it syncs up to Exchange. Yeah. It's when it's a meeting, it involves rooms or other people. We recommend you do all of that processing from your mail client on your computer or from OA. Got it.
And I'll just mention just real quick, because of the couple technical issues, we're running a little bit behind. We're going to finish what we're going to go through. We are recording this, so if you do have to leave or go to lunch, we will have this available if you want to watch it later. If you want to stick around, obviously, please do. And again, if you have any other questions as we're going through this content, do let us know. Again, as you have heard, we're answering throughout. So, okay, sorry.
Can you actually invite me to a meeting real quick? We do actually recommend that. Yeah, let's discard that draft real quick while we're waiting. I can actually do that right from my inbox too, but I'm waiting for Christina is going to send me a meeting. Are you doing it for today?
Yes, and then if you want to go back to the screen sharing in the Adobe Connect.
Demonstration. Share my screen. Okay. Wait for this pop in here. Okay. So what I want to show you though is a couple different things going on here. I got a pop up. Tentatively on my calendar, I have a meeting from Christina, but I also have something in my inbox. What we're recommending is that you process the meeting from the inbox invite, because then it's going to take the appropriate actions on the meeting and it's going to add it to the calendar. It's going to remove the email and put it in your deleted items folder. It's going to send a response to Christina, saying that I've accepted the meeting. If you do that based on the item that's temporarily kind of on your calendar, it might not do all of the proper actions that it needs to do, and then it could cause issues down the road with Christina sending updates and so on and so forth. So what I want to do is I want to actually accept the meeting and send the response, because that's how the system knows. Everything should be linked between these different users and their mail files and keep everything in line. And then you'll notice, as I mentioned, now it's a full meeting on here, not just a tentative meeting. And deleted items, it's actually removed this the invite, not the meeting, it's remove the invite.
And now it should show up when you do that preview of your calendar.
Yes,
right?
and now if I go down here to do a review of my calendar, you'll see I have a test meeting at 12 from Christine. The other thing that we want to do too is you don't want to actually just delete that invite from your inbox, because if you've accepted it over on the calendar, which we've said not to do, and I go delete the invite from my inbox, it'll actually remove that meeting from your calendar. And you can see how the issues can kind of snowball and start causing issues.
Got it. So best practice,
Best
if you get an
practice,
email about a meeting, accept it from
accept or decline,
Got it.
or propose a new time, but do it from the invite and not
from your email, not
from your email.
Calendar.
Correct. Also, we actually recommend that you don't auto-accept requests. If a user has granted one or more persons delegate access to their calendar, or if a user is a delegate, you should turn off auto-accept meeting requests, because what you don't want to happen is things to auto-process based on a setting on your client.
I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint.
Okay.
We have a couple more things we're going to go through.
All right.
And this is a lot of what you just talked about.
Yes.
With the meetings and invitations.
Which I can't actually see it right now.
It's taking us. Nobody's just being fussy today.
We should complain somehow.
Okay, so reoccurring meetings, or is there anything else you want to
talk about? Let's actually go over the reoccurring meetings real quick, just because that is important. And if we, have some time, can we go to that page?
Yeah. Yep. I'm on the.
Oh,
let me just share my screen.
Let's actually go. I have it right here. A lot of people that we noticed as we started working with people that were seeing issues did a reoccurring meeting, and they made it for no end date. Well, that basically means that for the next 60 years, that there's a repeating meeting that they have every month or week or, every quarter or something. Well, I know I'm personally not going to be here in 60 years, so I wouldn't want to sell anything out that far. They don't think it's a big deal, but the problem is, as you start rescheduling individual occurrences of that, then you start running into issues.
Got it.
So what you want to do is always put a meeting end date on a reoccurring meeting, always.
Okay.
Instead of trying to change the ownership of a meeting, what you want to do, rather than editing it as an attendee, you want to cancel that instance and then have whoever
scheduled it cancel it.
And then a new person send it out.
So that would be an instance, like if someone scheduled a meeting, they're not going to be there or just had to be out of the office that day. Best practice.
Yes.
Have that person cancel the meeting, you reschedule it, and resend the meeting.
If it's
something you need to change.
Or if it works to do that.
Got it. Okay.
Right? And the less instances of a meeting you have, we're going to put some numbers to this in a minute on the next slide, but the less instances of a meeting you have, the less you're going to find that you're going to need to do those individual cancellations because you just moved on to the next set of meetings.
Got it. And someone had a good question. What if the person proposing the meeting has left the university?
If you ask us before their mail file gets deleted, and with permission from local IT, we can go into their mail file and cancel the meeting, so that the cancellation notice is sent to everyone, and it's removed from any rooms. But if their mail file's gone already, there's nothing that we can do. Everybody who's invited to the meeting needs to go into their individual calendars and remove the meeting themselves. We actually had this come up recently where somebody was gone for 6 months and their mail file's long gone. We don't have anything to do to go. We don't, to cancel the meeting because the originator of the meeting, their mail file is completely gone already. So there's really no recourse other than all those individuals that were invited need to cancel it from their own calendars. And then if need be, if there's a room that for whatever reason doesn't have an owner applied to it, we can go in and delete it out of the room just to free up that space.
So it doesn't keep coming up. Got it.
Correct.
Okay. So again, best practice, if you know someone's leaving, give IT a heads up.
Yep. If you need to change, you know, you do have that meeting that's scheduled in perpetuity, you can just go into that and edit the end date. It's not, you know, it's always editable, right? And if you, for some reason you have a problem with a reoccurring meeting, you can go in and change the end date to just after the last instance of it, and then create a new meeting.
Yeah.
You know, and then make it out following these guidelines that we're going to give out here, and then send out that new updated notice, and then that'll kind of let those problem meetings that do occur time to time kind of trickle out of people's lives. Refrain from sharing attachments in a meeting, because then, as I mentioned, as you start rescheduling things, you get multiple instances of a meeting out there, then you have those attachments kind of duplicated, triplicated out there, and that's taking up space in your mail file.
Got it.
So let's actually switch over to the length guidelines. I'm sure there's going to be some questions about this. Oh,
oops, sorry, did I go?
Yeah, too far. If it's a daily meeting, we recommend that you only do it 2 to 4 weeks. Weekly meeting, 2 months. Bi-weekly, 3 months. Monthly meeting, 6. Quarterly meeting, you could go a year. If it's an annual meeting, you could go 3 years, or just make them individual. Now, mind you, this is for meetings where people and rooms and equipment and group calendars are invited. If it's a birthday or an anniversary reminder or an appointment that's just a placeholder for you and your calendar, and other people aren't invited to it, schedule it out for 50 years. We don't. It's not going to cause an issue. That it's when it's affecting multiple people's calendars that we recommend following these guidelines. And a question came up, well, I don't want to every month, I don't want to have to send out a new invite. Well, nobody says you have to wait a month to send out the invite. You can do all your groups of meetings now and send them out. I want to send them out for June, July, August, September, October, November, December for the next year. I can send them all out now. They're just not all linked together. They're separate meeting groups that I'm sending out now, so that depending on all the more people that you have on a meeting invite, and those people are using Outlook on a Mac. You know, here at the university, we don't have standard clients and devices like maybe some corporations do. So we have to put these recommendations out there, because people have iOS devices on 10 different versions. They have Android on 100 different versions, and their tablets and laptops and Macs. You know, some people are actually not even using Outlook on a Mac. They're using the Apple Mail and calendaring app. So you throw all these different things into the mix, and all those different clients handle meetings differently. So by making these recommendations, we're actually hoping to minimize issues people have based on those endpoints that are connecting to the meeting.
And I'll mention, as you were talking about this, the other nice thing about kind of doing these kind of groups of meetings separately, so for instance, you know, a monthly meeting, kind of setting them up, you know, for 6 months. If someone's schedule does change in 3 months, it's easier to change that small group of meetings than change the entire recurring meeting.
Correct.
So that's another benefit of doing that as well. All right.
I know we're over. There's more kind of things we had on the presentation to go over. I don't know if we should continue or we should wrap it up and answer questions.
Yeah, I think we're getting pretty close to noon and lunchtime for most people. So the PowerPoint's here. It will be available for download. People can absolutely reference that as they want. I'll show people how they can download the PowerPoint and the recording of the event, which we'll be posting later today or tomorrow, and everybody who registered for this event will get a link to that when it's posted. So let's see. So what else do we have here? Email recommendations. Oh, okay. So basically, it was just email and resources. So
I think we skip over one of the.
Okay. I think we can
earlier, just like with some shortcuts and tips about little things like.
And it is in the PowerPoint, so they can reference that.
It is.
As well. Okay. So we'll just mention online resources for everything that Kevin talked about. There's the NUIT collaboration website that has a lot of the information about how to do and go through a lot of the processes Kevin talked about. There's a known behaviors page to kind of cover any kind of quirks of the system, let's say. And then some calendaring support tools as well that everybody can reference that will go through a lot of what Kevin talked about, including delegation tips, right? Okay, great.
And there's actually a little pamphlet that when we did the live version of this presentation that we handed out. I don't know if Stefan's got that posted online yet.
I believe it is, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you can also go to the NUIT website. That PDF of that little handout is there. It's very handy. It's really helpful. So you can get that there as well. So we'll open it up to any questions. As we're kind of wrapping things up here, I'm going to pull up some poll questions just for feedback, but I will leave it open for questions. You can just type them into the Q&A box here, and I'll pass those over to Kevin as we're doing feedback really quick. So our first feedback question is, did you learn something new during today's event? And we hope everybody did. I did personally, actually. Even doing these things, I always get a good tip or two out of it. So again, just let us know if you learned something new.
I would like to know if there's a feedback question if Adobe Connect technology actually.
Yeah, we're going to be.
I'd like to provide feedback on that myself.
Yeah, we'll be talking with Adobe. Okay, great. It looks like pretty much everybody has learned something new, which is always great to see. So I'll give you one more moment to answer that question. All right. Great. And I'll move on to the second question, which is, oops, hold this off correctly. Do you plan to apply any of the information you learned at today's event? So if you found a useful tip that you can use for email, calendaring, if you're unsure about how to use something that we talked about today, send an email, let us know. We're happy to help you kind of figure out how to use the information that we talked about. And someone asked a quick question. They missed a comment about adding attachment after sending the email. Can you just kind of talk through that real quick as we're kind of wrapping this up?
Add attachment after.
So I think they're referring to when you write an email, say, here's the attachment, and it pops up saying you did an attachment.
Oh, I could say, well, don't send it then. The two options on that little pop-up are send anyway and don't send. If I say don't send, then I can continue editing the message and add the attachment. Or I could just send it anyway if I want to mess with somebody and have them think they didn't, they're missing something.
Yeah.
Missing the attachment.
Got it.
But yeah, it would be a don't send, and you can continue editing.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and our last poll question is, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being very satisfied, how would you rate the overall quality of this event? And again, apologies for the technical issues today. That was unexpected and unfortunate. But again, if there is any feedback that you have for these, we take it into account when we do these. We're actually hosting this event again in May. So any feedback you have for us, please let us know. We'll make those adjustments going forward. And we do always value your feedback and your input on these events because that's how we make them better. All right, great. And I'll give people one more moment, and then I'll show you where you can download the PowerPoint that Kevin had and went through. Okay. All right. So to download the PowerPoint, if you just click on this PDF file here, click download files, it will open up in a new browser window for you, and then you can download it from there. Again, we'll also have the PDF and the recording of today's event posted on the NUIT website, probably later today or early tomorrow. You can download or view both, and we are having this event, again, as I mentioned, in May 14th, I believe. It's a Thursday morning. If you want to pass this information to anyone else, or if you'd like to attend again, hopefully with fewer issues with screen sharing, you are more than welcome to register for that one as well. And that link is on the NUIT website as well. So with that, I will say thank you, Kevin, for the great presentation. Again, sorry, Adobe Connect decided to have it today. And thank you all so much for attending. We appreciate you being there, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.